where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative.
And make that to debate me on it. And I'm going to tell you just what my position is. And my position is not anti-science. My position is exactly aligned with the National Academy of Science and the Institute of Medicine. People don't know my position because people call me an anti-vaxxer, but I'm not. I'm pro-vaccine. I had all my children vaccinated. I believe the vaccine should be tested, safety tested. People don't know. You cannot sue a company that makes vaccines that injures you. No matter how egregious the injury is, no matter how negligent that company was, no matter how toxic the ingredient. Furthermore, they're completely insulated, so there's no incentive for them to make vaccines safe. Furthermore, they're also exempt. They're the only medicine that's exempt from safety testing. So now, one of the 72 vaccines currently given to our children, mandated, has ever been tested against a placebo. That means nobody knows what the risk profile is, and nobody can say with a scientific certainty that that vaccine is averting more problems than it causes. And I don't think that we ought to be mandating medical interventions for unwilling Americans unless we know precisely that that vaccine is going to end up helping people rather than hurting them. The Institute of Medicine is the ultimate arbiter of vaccine science, according to Congress and HHS. And the Institute of Medicine has time and again in 1991, 1994, 2011, 2014 has scolded and rebuked and screamed at the CDC for not doing safety testing on any of these vaccines. And we've seen the vaccine schedule. I had 3 vaccines when I was a kid. My children got 72. It changed in '89, and if you were born prior to '89, your chance of having a chronic disease, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, autism, food allergies, is 12%. If you were born after '89, it is 54%, according to HHS. And nobody's explaining where is it all coming from? Where is all the autism coming from if it's not vaccines? Why is it in my generation, 1 in 2,500 kids had autism, and in this generation, 1 in 34? CDC is supposed to tell us where the diseases are coming from. Why is it in my generation, 1 in 400 kids had food allergies, peanut allergies, and 1 in 10 today? And guess what? Look at the vaccine inserts. All of the 400 diseases that are now epidemic in our children.
All right. So,
said is vaccines. I'm not anti-vaccine. I think vaccines should be subject to the same level of rigorous testing as other medications. And that is the only thing, my only position. Listen, I fought to get mercury out of fish for 40 years, and nobody called me anti-fish. I'm not anti-vaccines just because I want safe vaccines. And I think everybody wants safe vaccines. And as we all now recognize, the COVID vaccines were neither safe nor effective.
Well, that's
science possible. And the problem with vaccines, in my view, the reason I've been a critic is because vaccines are the only medical product that do not have to undergo placebo-controlled testing prior to license by FDA. The only medical product or medical device. We have 72 vaccines that are now mandated for our children, and in many states they're federally recommended, which means mandated in many states, and none of them have gone through a pre-licensing safety test with a placebo. And because of that, we do not know the risk profile of those products, and nobody can make a rational, common sense, prudent decision about the risk and benefits. So, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, I don't want to ban vaccines. I don't want to tell people you can't get it, you can. I think we ought to have choice, number one, and we ought to have the best science possible. People don't know what my stance is on vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine. And I've said that hundreds and hundreds of times, but it doesn't matter. Because that is a way of silencing me, using that pejorative to describe me as a way of silencing or marginalizing me. My position on vaccines, I think, virtually every American would agree with my stance on vaccines, which is that vaccines should be tested like other medicines. They should be safety tested. And unfortunately, vaccines are not safety tested. They're not, of the 72 vaccine doses now mandated, essentially mandated, they're recommended, but they're really mandated for American children, none of them, not one, has ever been subject to a pre-licensing placebo-controlled trial.
Yes, they have.
No.
Yes, they have.
Okay, let me just say something. Dr. Fauci and many other people for many years said this, that Bobby Kennedy, when he says that, is wrong. So I met with Dr. Fauci in 2016, and I agreed to go on Trump's Vaccine Safety Commission, and I was with Aaron Siri and Lynn Redwood and a number of other people, and we said to him, can you show us one test from any vaccine, pre-licensing safety test? And he said, I'll send it to you. I can't find one now. He never did. So we sued him. Aaron Siri and I sued HHS. And after a year of litigation and stonewalling, they said that they could not provide a single safety study for any vaccine that is on the childhood schedule, pre-licensing safety study. So anybody who wants to read that can go to the Children's Health Defense website, and you can read HHS's admission that not a single one has ever been safety tested pre-licensing. Now, what I've said is other medicines are required to do that. And we should have to do that for vaccines. If I'm wrong, show me the test, show me the study. You won't be able to, because there are none. That means that we don't know what the long-term risks are, the risk profile of those products. When I was a kid, I took the 3 vaccines that were then required. Now, my kids' generation, there are 72 vaccines required in this country, 72 doses of 16 vaccines. But I was traveling a lot as a kid. I went to Africa, Latin America, and everything. So I received that entire battery that you used to receive. So I probably received more vaccines than most people in my generation.
And your kids, have all had vaccines?
My kids were all fully vaccinated now.
So you're not intrinsically anti-vaccine?
No, I was never anti-vaccine. All I want is the safety science. I think that we should have placebo-controlled trials, which are required for every other medical product, prior to licensing vaccines. And unfortunately, vaccines are exempt from those. They're the only medicine or medical product that are exempt from pre-licensing safety trials. And, and therefore, we do not know what the risk profile for any of these products are. And we do not know for any particular of those 72 doses whether they are averting more problems than they're causing. And I just think we ought to know that. Where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative. Well, like you said, I'm pro-vaccine. I've never said anything anti-vaccine, but I read the science, and the science is very clear that some of the vaccines, and what you have to understand is that the vaccine regimen changed dramatically around 1989. The reason it changed, Tucker, is that Congress, drowning in pharmaceutical industry money, did something they've never done for any other industry. They gave blanket legal immunity to all the vaccine companies, so that no matter how sloppy the line protocol calls, no matter how absent the quality control, no matter how toxic the ingredient or egregious the injury to your child, you cannot sue them. So there's no depositions, there's no discovery, there's no class action suits. All of a sudden, vaccines became enormously profitable.
From that point, from '89 when the law passed.
And in '87, it was implemented, and then there was a gold rush by the pharmaceutical industry to add new vaccines to the schedule. So I got 3 vaccines, and I was fully compliant. I'm 63 years old. My children got 69 doses of 16 vaccines to be compliant. And a lot of these vaccines aren't even for communicable, casually communicable diseases like hepatitis B, which comes from unprotected sex, or, sharing needles. Why do we give that to a child the first day of their life? and it was loaded with mercury.
And we do give that to children.
We continue to give it to them. The mercury has been taken out of 3 vaccines in this country, but it remains in the flu vaccine, 48 million flu vaccines, and it's in vaccines all over the world. And it is the most potent neurotoxin known to man that is not radioactive. How can we inject that into a child? If you take that vaccine vial and break it, you have to dispose of that as hazardous waste. You have to evacuate the building.